is my wife, Betsy. My two boys, Bill and Brett, older, younger. They like to show cattle, living on the Hereford. Brett's got a very great heifer there. And those two little boys are my wife. They work. They're willing to work. They're excited to work. They don't know what's holding them back, so they try everything. And it's fantastic to watch. Come on in. Can you guys hear me back there? Perfect. Awesome. All right. So how did you get into farming, Adam? We were first generation farmers. I had no farm to go back to. So I worked for a farm for many years. He was feeding like 1,000 head of cattle, farmed a couple thousand acres, and it's actually my wife's uncle at the time. Wasn't dating her, and he came and said, "Adam, come work for me. I just got on a short course over at the University of Madison, and come work for me." I said, "I will." I was working for a big grain farm at the time, but you have to teach me how to farm. Because nobody was teaching. I went through Forage. I always loved agriculture. Both my grandparents had farms, but there was no way to get into that. So I knew I was going to be on my own. Okay. So my wife, after Rhett was born, second child, kind of came. I married the dairy farmer. She went to University of Madison. Her family had 120 cow dairy, milked for years, a couple thousand acres, very successful. I thought, what is it? Date by the Black Book and you married by the Black Book? I said, I'm set. So, 2012, we got married in 2011. We started working together with her folks. They're like, "Come on in, Adam, you can run the crops." Her grandparent had just died, her grandfather had just died, and it took about 6 months, and I figured this was not going to work. Her dad was completely unprepared to take over the farm. There was two uncles, two brothers, and two cousins, and it was just never going to work. So, come back to this. Betsy comes, "Honey, we have this infrastructure. We're feeding cattle. We feed cattle. Let's start a dairy." I'm like, "Oh, okay, let's do it. That sounds good, right?" So, I built the entire parlor. We added on to another building. We had kind of an open back cow barn that we could make work. We stacked a swing pen parlor on the one end of it. Did the milk house, had that all set up, got to go. In 2016, I started in October of 2015 and built it over the winter, and we were milking April 18th of 2016. And I'm thinking, we get started, that was the first milking. We had 5 cows milking, and I'm thinking, this is going to be great. April 18th, we go 2 months, they start, we didn't get our check the first week of June. And I'm thinking, great. First check was $12.38 a hundred. And that's when reality came home. This is going to be a slog. Okay? So, current state of agriculture. If I had one way to set this up, it's up and to the right. Do I need that?
Yeah, just for video.
There you go. All righty. Thank you. Up and to the right. Okay? Everything is more. More tillage, more yield, more inputs, more money, right? That's how it works, right? Here's the United States corn yield, 1995, about 2 bushel an acre, up and to the right. Okay? Here's world's soybean ending stocks to use ratio. Highest ever. You can't see it, but the chart goes back to 1960. Okay? What's the end game here, guys? All right? Along with that came land prices. Here, average land price, $4,080 an acre. This was as of September. All right? Let's go state data. Here's Indiana. Boom. Low, medium, and high quality land. Am I going too fast here? All right. Here's Iowa. 1950, current day. Has there been a setback of any real thing here? So think about it. Last 70 years, we've had everything reinforced in our mind, up and to the right. It only gets better. It only goes higher. More, 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 more. Okay? There's me. I was born in 1985. I did not get onto that bandwagon. And there's millions of us young people out there like that. We couldn't get on the bandwagon yet. All right? So, along with all that up and to the right came a few negatives. Okay? Farm sizes got bigger up and to the right. Land total acres kind of stayed about the same. But look at our number of farms. This is from 1930. You guys back there can't see it. 1930, we had almost 7 million farms. Now we're at 1.89. Okay? So we're doing a really good job at getting people off the land. Okay? Here's production expenses. Up and to the right. More, more, more. Nominal, inflation adjusted. Are we that much better off? Okay. U.S. Farm Financials. This was recently on Twitter and captured a lot of attention. The bottom one is net farm income. Has that gone up and to the right? Okay. Top line is total dollars returned. Gross value. Middle line is expenses. Where are we at here? We want those numbers wide apart, and they're getting narrow. They're staying narrow. We have a couple more room up here. Okay? I want this chunk to be as big as possible. We all should. Okay? Economic factors of production. Now, I am not an economist. I am not a trade economist. I'm just dumb enough to be dangerous. Okay? Land, obviously. Everything gets bid back to land. Labor, how do we get the work done? Capital. Okay? These are the three factors in every civilization ever. If you can't get those together. Here's one we never talk about. Biological capital. Zach, you know what biological capital is? Okay, in my mind, it's anything that helps us produce a crop from that land, all right? Any of the three factors, land, labor, capital, I put biological capital in there, okay? Fertility. Could be the nodulation, nitrogen we can produce without having to buy, okay? Look at that soil structure there. That's a hairy vetch plant if anybody doesn't know. Ground cover, solar panel. Remember Ray talking about don't spill sunlight? Right there. Planting green, putting corn into there. This is my favorite one. Look at these two hoodlums. What about the knowledge that they're capturing today as young kids that they can take with them into the future? All right, they're standing in some sorghum this summer. All right, they're going to know how to manipulate that ground to coax a crop out of it that a lot of us don't know. Think about the knowledge that they can capture from here on out. They're starting at a better spot than I. I've never had to moldboard plow. I'm hoping that they don't ever have to till. I don't know if we'll get there, but we're going to try. I'm not against tillage. I'm just saying it'd be kind of fun. All right? So, Adam, you're a conservationist, whatever, cover cropper. What have you done? I've done a lot of things. We've tried interseeding into corn silage. We thought, let's make a TMR sample that when we chop will be good enough quality for the cows. Because we didn't have a lot of infrastructure, we had to try and find the short circuits, try and find the quick, the easy ways to not have to purchase inputs. So let's try some of this stuff. That's kind of what it looked like. Just some soil. Those earthworms are doing my tillage. It's kind of amazing what you can do with soil that looks this color, nasty color gray. We're a very heavy, wet clay soil. CEC's in the 30s, 35, 40. Pretty nasty stuff when I get it over. You take it to no-till, and you got a lot of problems initially. Cover crops, in my mind, make no-till better. Another portion of this, and how many people have livestock in here? Quite a few. You guys all need it. Get it after it. One of the benefits that I've seen since starting our dairy herd and the beef cattle herd is adapted livestock. I think that is an easy button that more people aren't taking enough advantage of. What's the value of a calf that is genetically programmed to do well on your land? It's pretty powerful. Okay? Just random pictures of cover crops. Animals that know how to be animals. So one thing we do with our dairy heifers, I don't know if anybody's worked with dairy. Any dairy producers out there? I'm sorry. One thing we've started to do, because dairy heifers are notoriously dumb, we started putting them in with our beef cow herd to teach them how to be a cow. And suddenly, they actually act like animals. They know how to lay down instead of just pawing around the fences. It's pretty amazing, okay? Always stick a handful of them there. They act like babysitters to the dairy heifers, especially after weaning. It's pretty cool. Okay, another random picture. We do graze quite a few cover crops. This was an interesting one. It was so wet in 2019, we couldn't get the baler out in the ground without sinking in our mud. And it was so wet that if you laid anything on the ground, it was just muddy crap that you couldn't feed. So I got a wild idea. I'm like, well, why are we going to try and make bales to haul the cows? Let's short circuit a step. And I found an old crappy stacker, and we flail chopped it and fed to the cows because we couldn't make feed that year. It was so hard. So young guys, use your ingenuity. You are not utilizing enough resources. That thing was light. I could go almost anywhere, and it worked great. Basically saved our bacon. Okay, this picture I'm particularly proud of because that was a screw up on my part. I sheared a pin, and the monitor wasn't screwing up, and I had just shut it off. And got to the other end, And when we came back and interseeded it, we had sunflowers and stuff in there. It was part of the experiment. But somebody found that picture from the Smithsonian Institute, reached out and asked if they could put that in. They 3-4 years ago, they had the exhibit about soils and ag. That was in the Smithsonian for this exhibit, which was pretty cool. Okay? No. You sign the email and you go. So our focus has been heavy on forages. That is, in my mind, that is the easy win in our, I don't want to have to sell grain. I don't want to sell any product other than milk and meat off my farm. So if I'm the end user, I can get paid for the value of my crop. So John Kemp was talking about it, Ray Archuleta. The value in that forage is intrinsically more valuable to me than anybody else. And if my livestock are genetically programmed to use this, that's another bonus for Adam. And we've seen it. So I'm trying to become my own end user, and we are. We're there. So when guys go, oh, cover crop's too expensive, do you have livestock and a way to utilize it? Because if you're a corn and soybean guy, it's going to be hard to justify a $70 or $80 cover. But when I can get 3,000 pounds of dry matter off of a $70 cover, it's cheap feed. And this guy is my nutritionist going, whew. And he's been working with me long enough to know it looks dumb, it's not going to work, it'll work. So, kind of fun. Part of the problem with a lot of covers is guys like to see this. They want to see it ahead of time. Oh, look at it, drive by, it looks so nice. I'm more worried about this. What's going on under the ground, okay? So, a lack of resources leads to creativity and innovation out of necessity. And in ag, we've forgot about this a lot lately. When $7 corn, it gets real easy to get lazy, okay? So, it's not all, I'm not going to blow smoke up and say it's all been easy. Sometimes, you guys can't read this back there, but it could be that the purpose of your life is only to serve as a warning to others. I've been that guy. Okay? In my mind, our keys to success, we've tried to plug the leaks in the system. Okay? Are you spilling any sunlight? What are you doing with your manure? Are you handling it well? First off, make no mistakes. Try to plug the leaks. Okay? Our big success has been farming deeper. The covers are really what we found years into it is cereal rye brings nutrients that are deep in our clay from years of tillage. They're bringing it to the surface. All of a sudden, it's showing up in our feed samples. Wow. When we started growing mixed alfalfa and forage crops, nutrition is like, how'd you get a sample to go 1.7 percent calcium? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, what did you apply there? I said, I didn't apply anything. We put chicory in the mix with the chicory, small burnet, and plantain in with our alfalfa and the grasses. And he's like, oh my God, we don't see more than 1 or 1.2. Why are you coming up with 1.7? It's like, well, I don't know. It's working. So farm deeper. There's a lot of fertility deep below that tillage layer that's just waiting to be used. Never spill sunlight if it can be avoided. We try and have something growing. When we're doing our cover crops, we're trying to do like a rotational cover crop. So if we take the forage off, there's something low, red clover, ryegrass, something there. As soon as you take that canopy away, it can come. Try to do that. And it's cheap. You're making the pass already. Leave something there growing. Maybe cut a little higher. And this has been a hard one. A biologically driven system can never be expected to compete head-to-head with an extractive one due to the lag time it takes for that biology to work. So guys, a lot of guys come, hey, I want to put a cover crop. Are you willing to put in the time and learn and knowledge to let that system work? Or are you just going to go, I'm going to try and fit this cover into my existing corn soybean rotation. I'm not going to do anything different. And if it doesn't work, I'm just going to grab a bigger hammer and try and pound it in. You will not be successful. Okay? You may think you're cool. I don't know if you guys could see this back there. I was driving a tractor down the road, and I got passed in a motorcycle with this sidecar with 2 dogs with goggles on. That guy's living his best life. Yep. Demographics of ag. Now here's the come to Jesus moment. Okay? Total farmers in the country. This is as of the last census, which came out in September. 3.37 million. Okay? Over the age of 65, almost 1.3. 55 to 64, 837,000. So, over 2 million are over the age of that 3.4 are over the age of 55. Everybody younger than that is 1.18. Okay, so here's the problem. We have more over the age of 65 than we do under the age of 55. Change is coming whether we want it to or not. All right, look at the average age distribution and look at the changes. 2017, we've just skewed older. Some serious reality coming. Here's the problem. Have these numbers changed much? The younger? No. Yeah.
On your data, what that's any farmer, because what we've seen is a lot of younger ones are very small.
Yeah, yeah, but look at what they're representing. Sheer numbers. So if they're small numbers and small farmers, we're not moving the needle.
Right.
I agree.
That's why I'm saying the land base for those older farms is monstrous.
I got the next slide.
Okay, sorry.
Here's the genetic or generational breakdown. Silence and older, which would be like your 75 plus, 80-year-old plus, baby boomer, Generation X, and millennials. So millennials are approaching 40. Okay, they're not young anymore. There's a serious issue here coming. We're about to have the biggest wealth transfer in history. How is that going to take place? Who is going to buy all of the assets, and how are they going to get transferred? All right. Okay, where are our baby boomers? Anybody over the age of 65? Where are you? All right, you got 10 years. This is why I say that they don't come to me to feel happy. 74.8 years old is the average age of death in the United States. So get after it. If you don't have a succession plan, get after it. Please, I'm begging you, get started. Okay? Now, I don't blame the boomers. They've done everything they were going to do. In the 1970s, this was a sticker. Tillage promotes a safer environment for tomorrow. Okay? 1970s. Earl Butts. What did he say? Fence row to fence row. Let's go. You know, get bigger, get out. And what did they do? You go back to my slide showing the number of farms, they took it to heart. So I don't blame them for that at all. My big point here is it's different today than it used to be. Okay? This is 1970. This is the average age of the median age of the population. Okay? If you were say 20 years old in 1970 or 29, everybody you knew was 29. Everybody you knew was around your same age. Now look at where we're at. The average age is 39. Everybody's gotten older. Okay? So the opportunities here are completely different than they were back then. All right? Here's the inflation-adjusted corn price. I'm sure some of you guys saw this on Twitter. This is 1980. This is 2024. It's $1.89 a bushel if you inflate and take the inflation-adjusted dollars. Have we changed anything? No.
Expenses.
Okay. Part of the benefit that the boomers got is if you survive the 80s in interest rates, this is a federal funds rate, you had a 40-year tailwind pushing you. You were able to borrow at lower rates for the next 40 years. That's a huge benefit because what happens to assets? They go up in value. So part of the increase we saw is directly proportional to the Fed funds rate and the manipulation of money. So here's my controversial take. In this type of a system, how do you make money? Getting rich, 1980 to present. You make a terrible financial decision and buy something with too much debt. Okay? What do we always hear? Oh, land was too high to buy. It's always been too high to buy. Okay? So you struggle for a short time to make the payments on that poor financial decision. The Federal Reserve would manipulate rates lower in a year or two. So if you could survive that little uncomfortable period, asset price would get manipulated higher, allowing you to refinance, sell, or rent. I'm a financial genius. Let's do it again. And that's been happening for the last 40 years. It sounds harsh, but this is where we're at. Okay? Part of the problem that allowed this to happen is we were getting money from somewhere. This is total federal debt. Okay? Up and to the right to the extreme. We've now approached the parabolic stage. Okay? So that money that got printed flowed somewhere. Where did it flow? Equipment, bins, building, ag assets, land. Everywhere. Your stock market. Okay? This is total record debt. This is just the last year. Okay? You see this blip here where it goes straight? It went up 105 billion on the last day of October. They printed $487 billion in the last month before the election. Okay, we're at the where do we go from here stage. How much higher? Do we go to 70 trillion? We're at 36. What's the end game here? I don't have the answer, but I know this ain't sustainable. Okay? Part of that is M2, which is real money supply. So the point I'm showing here is this line is anytime you're above it, you're expanding the money supply. Anytime you're below it, you're contracting. And the point I want to bring to this is, so this is 1981, sharp contraction. They raised interest rates that sucked money out of the economy. What did that give you? The ag depression of the 80s, okay? So the spread here, where we're at right now is we spent a lot of time above the line. This has been the sharpest monetary contraction in history in this country. I don't know where this goes, but something's coming, and it's probably a train. You guys following? Am I going too fast? We okay here? All right. So what happened to all of this up until the last 2 years? Equipment prices went crazy, okay? Depreciation from 2018 to 2023 was actually non-existent. You bought a piece of equipment, it was worth more 3 years later than what you paid for it. That is not normal. We've been living in the anomaly. Uh-oh. What does that mean?
Can you go back to the previous slide?
Yep.
One more.
You have to touch it? What do you do?
Touch the computer.
There's a TV remote.
I'm touching it. I don't know. Anybody smarter than this? This one?
Yeah, right there.
What's up?
I'm just looking at the 70s, early 70s,
Early 70s.
73.
73 we had one.
Yeah.
Same thing in 80, well,
Early
79.
70s, you couldn't, it was real similar the last couple of years. You couldn't get anything, and then when you could get it, you got it because it was going to be more expensive in the next 6 months.
Yep.
Isn't that also the time of the gold standard being revoked?
Say that again?
Isn't that also the era of the gold standard?
Yeah, 71. What happened there? Yep. So my point is we're living in the anomaly. This isn't normal. We just think it is. This is not normal. Okay? So here's, millennials are too lazy, they can't afford to buy a house. No, look at this chart. Okay? This is from 1890 all the way to today. That's all-time record high housing prices. Okay? I don't know if you guys know this movie, The Matrix. What if it's all money printing and there is no economy? Makes you wonder. Okay? In this whole ag economy, where'd the kids go? Why are Ma and Pa sitting at home with no kids around? Have we killed the opportunity for the next generation? Here's fertility rate for the world, and we're actually lower than that. We're at about 1.6 as we currently sit. Okay? Think about this in terms of up and to the right. Everything from 1940 to today was more population, more people, more growth, more end markets for our products. It was expanding. Here's where we're at today. This is from 1950, and the world population, fertility per woman is going down. Population went up, but we're peaked. We're not going to hit 10 billion. It's never going to happen. Mathematically, it's an impossibility. I just heard, they talk about the most populous nations on Earth, China, India. India probably overtook China in about 2005-06 instead of like last year like everybody was telling us. So here's where I charge everybody. All you experienced elders, okay? Anybody over the boomer age, okay? Share your knowledge. You can't take it to the grave with you, so let's share it. You guys have a wealth of experience here. Share it. Help somebody. Tell them not to make the same mistakes you did, okay? Please guard your criticisms, because if the son or grandson or somebody wants to come back and try a weird practice on your ground, let them try it. Let's see what happens. Innovation comes with lack of resources, so let them make some mistakes, okay? Your value comes from being a sounding board, not an anchor. How many farms do we know? I told you my father-in-law was completely unprepared to take over. It was because he was the worker bee and he was not ready for management when he took over, because Grandpa wouldn't let go. Okay? And sometimes just get out of the way and say, I'm not smart enough to let this, you're not smart enough to listen to me, so I'm going to let you make your mistakes and let it happen. All right? No, that is the great fallacy, the wisdom of old men. They do not grow wise, they grow careful. Use that care. A lot of value there because you guys have been through it. You've seen it. You can go, I think I know how this is going to end up. Share that. Okay? The young and aspiring, who's in here? The future looks bright. Okay? Fully utilize the resources that are available to you. None of us are utilizing all of our resources. We have lots of things we're not utilizing. Look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And of all things, be flexible. One thing I've learned since we started milking, Mother Nature is my biggest adversary because every year has been different. This year, we had the wettest April to July on record, followed by the driest September and October. How do you plan for that? So we build resiliency into our farm in an effort to overcome that. Be flexible to the extreme. Seek knowledge. Everybody's got one of these, and if you got the YouTube app, you have absolutely the entire world's ability to teach you something. Learn it. Okay? Build your network. I love things like this because it gives us a chance to network. I'm meeting guys that I only met through Twitter, through social media. Isn't that awesome? We have literally the ability to connect with anybody on the planet. Let's use it. Crowdsource our ideas. And do not seek out validation. Because one thing I've learned is you will not get it, especially from the conventional and the old. A lot of times, if you're seeking it out, you will not get it. Use it. Harness it. Turn it into something that powers you forward. Okay? And I would say the biggest thing is develop a hobby. Do not become one of the old guys who has no idea what they're going to do in retirement. There was just a big tweet about that today. Develop a hobby. Get something else. Okay? I love this one. Don't worry about people stealing an idea. If it's original, you'll have to ram it down their throats. I think there's some truth to that. Okay? Agency people, land and water, NRCS, conservation, excellent. I could pick on you guys too. Stop focusing conservation efforts on the new acres or producers. Support those who are doing it, especially the young guys. They need it. So quit trying to capture new acres. Oh, we signed up more acres. Okay. Don't forget about who you signed up 3 years ago. All right? My biggest pet peeve, we've heard it several times highlighted, weak incentives produce weak results. Why does anybody think $10 an acre for a cover crop is going to move the needle? It's not high enough when we're dealing with 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 or bigger crops. We need to make the incentive match what we're trying to outcome. All right? My goal is to make conservation so damn profitable that it cannot be ignored. On the whole way over here, I'm from southeast Wisconsin, 5 hours. Man, there's a lot of good-looking dirt going bare. And it's like, I haven't had that 40-year tailwind to be that lazy, to not protect that investment. Okay? And always ask, this is my biggest pet peeve, especially for new guys, who is bearing the risk? $10 incentive, but who risks losing $200 an acre if they get the cover crop wrong? All right? I want to hit you guys over the head with a hammer on this. Always ask who's bearing the risk. A nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. Okay? Here's some things to think about before we end, and this is really controversial. What happens if the mandate goes away? We are propping up 5 billion bushels of corn demand with a mandate that with the stroke of a pen could be gone. Are you building that into your risk management? What if the crop insurance subsidy that goes away? What if they turn it into tax? Zach here, who I urge you guys all to listen to, has some good ideas on that. What happens if they change crop insurance to more accurately reflect the risk of cover crops and conservation? What if they say no insurance subsidy if you don't plant a cover? Are you ready for that? I mean, obviously you guys are here at Soil Health thing. You guys are. What about your neighbors? Okay? How about consumer trends? This has been hit hard, and we're starting to see it. Anybody heard the songs on seed oils? I thought about playing it, but I thought it might be a little too much. Okay? Processed food regulations this last election, kind of a bellwether for things going on. I have no idea on that, other than there seems to be an undercurrent of things are changing. Mike, back there, his dad is 80, what, 4? 83, and how old's your nephew?
28.
Okay, and they both have an app. What's it called? Yucca app. You can scan a product and it'll tell you what chemical ingredients in there and their effect on the human body and how dangerous or harmful they could potentially be. They'll sit at the table talking about it. So that tells you where we're at. When you can get an 83-year-old guy and a 28-year-old, I didn't pay attention to that when I was 28. It was a box of Mountain Dew and however many Baconators I could eat, you know? And free market solutions. Everybody talks about free markets. We haven't had a free market in ag in many decades. So what happens if can we dream a little bit? What would free market solutions be? You know? This is, I read too much, I think too much. This is just a little bit of my repertoire, if you will. Things I like to look at. Different books. Fed Up's a particularly good one about the monetary policy. Fourth Turning, generational cycles. I'll let you guys do this. I can put it up later too. Without counsel, plans go awry, but in the multitude of counselors, they are established. Proverbs 15:22. And Jesus Christ is Lord. Thank you, guys. We're going to open up for questions. I hope we have a lively discussion here. Perfect. No tomatoes coming my way. Any ideas? I would just as soon have a nice discussion here at the end. I try and race through it. Go ahead.
So just a question for you. You do a lot of grazing or cover crops and stuff like that. So I've been trying to integrate that myself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with compaction. Trying to eliminate or reduce tillage.
Yep.
And what, you found any strategies to help you with that?
I also struggle with that. We've actually backed down on the grazing quite a bit. We used to do a lot more. Like now, we've figured out if you wreck that ground, you're wrecked for a while. I couldn't afford tillage equipment. I didn't get over that. That's why I didn't go full conventional tillage. I couldn't afford the tractor, and I grew up running the chisel plow, and I just despise every part of that because it was, oh, you're 15, you can run out there for 15 hours, go do it. And that was great for a while, and then you're like, I really hate my life right now. So we started grazing. What are you using for mixes? So I like a lot of heavy rooted crops, so ryegrass, rye, things that build rebar in the soil to give you that sponge, that capacity to actually handle that force. Frost has been my best friend. Southeast Wisconsin, there's a book called Kick the Hay Habit by Jim Garish, and our zone right next to the lake is one of the hardest places to do continuous grazing, and I learned that. I used to think, we can graze through anything, and then 2014 came and took me out. Because we had so much snow, so much ice, the cattle couldn't get through that freeze-thaw to actually graze, and that was a hard one. So that was when we kind of we got to rethink here, and that's when as we started to build ultra-flexibility into our rotations. So don't get married to any one thing. If that's what I have to say. So any other questions here? Go ahead.
In your advice or charges to all of us, you didn't talk about the university researchers, extension, and so on. And a lot of that work is, the private sector is doing a lot of that.
Yep.
What's the role for the university?
Okay, this gets to incentives, okay? I don't rely on a lot of their research because it's always late and it's too inflexible for my operation. We've worked with some research grants. Actually, I'm part of the Racine County Watershed Protection Committee, and our group is doing structured research on cereal rye and yield drag and all that. The problem is that's 5 years ago, and they're doing it today. So I need ultra flexibility so that we can go forward, but they are always trying to, they're trying to put parameters that just don't work in a lot of the research. So I personally don't put a lot of stock in it. I think, you go to Twitter, you can find what guys are doing, some of the crazy stuff out there that will not be researched by universities for quite a while yet. Intercropping, like what Jason Mock is doing, and manure applications, and all the interesting things, the farmers are on the cutting edge. I question today, put it this way, I think the information transfer is moving faster than the universities can keep up.
Do you think there's
Yep.
before you guys.
I would love to see that.
You know, because I see a lot of farmers today, they wish they would have done more soil testing 10 years ago,
Uh-huh.
5 years ago,
Yep.
whatever it is. But
Yep.
they didn't want to spend the money. They trusted in YouTube University.
Yep.
And I think that's a great opportunity that universities need to consider finding those young guys
Mm-hmm.
and going back to basically just anecdotal. Do you think that's something universities should be?
So that actually brings up a good point. One of the places that I think they would be very beneficial is I don't know how to do a structured, replicated trial because I don't care about the math that much. But you find a guy that really does that can come out. Our biggest problem on my farm is labor. It's me and my wife on 250 acres. I don't have enough extra me to do all of that extra research that's going to take me away from somewhere else. The value there would be them coming up saying, okay, what do you need? What are your constraints? How do we design a research plan around whatever is actually happening? I think that would be the real value. How do you publish that?
You don't.
That's the problem. But with social media, you can get the word out, and that's as good in my book as being published. You don't get the fancy name or letters behind your name, but in my mind, you can reach a much bigger audience. Because who's reading research papers?
Researchers.
Okay, so yes, that would be awesome. You know? How about that demographic data? Anybody worried? Go ahead.
So I got another question. So think about unique solutions and tying that to your demographic questions. I'm in a portion of Minnesota where one of the ideas I have is crop ground is about $300 to $350 an acre.
Mm-hmm.
Prime crop ground.
You're saying rent?
Red.
Yep.
Yeah. And I got an older neighbor. He's got about 80-ish acres. I want to go and put a full season cover crop in. The whole idea I have is if I can get a pound of gain a day off of, if I can get 8,000 pounds of production, a pound of gain a day, $3, even $2 a pound.
Yep.
I make all, I can pay my bills.
Yep.
But convincing that guy, 73 years old, that I'm not gonna, he doesn't care, and I'm willing to pay him cash rent. He doesn't want cows on his land.
So
That's a challenge I have.
I'm living that right now. I just gave up 51 acres, 74-year-old guy, same deal. Because he made some poor financial decisions, bought a house in a floodplain, a hurricane took it out, now he's needing money, he's selling off parts of the farm. The number one fear I think a lot of the elder generation have is running out of money. They don't care about saving the planet if they're going to run out of retirement money. That's a gigantic issue that we're going to have to face. And I don't know how to overcome that. My goal is, or one of my theses is that as heirs, and I didn't talk about it much, but as this generation is beginning to pass, they have no second generation, because what do? We kicked all the kids off. Okay? Now the kids who, and I witnessed this on some of my ground, I had a 94-year-old landowner. She was in a nursing home. She died in March. I get a call, first part of April. Yeah, mom died. These are the next generation who I was dealing with was in their 70s. Mom died. We're going to keep it the same. Meanwhile, there's 5 heirs that just took this over. 3 are in Arizona, 2 are up here. Literally 2 weeks to the day later, yep, none of us are getting, we got to sell it. None of the siblings they were all fighting each other. How do we overcome this? So meanwhile, I'm here going, what am I supposed to do here? I have to farm it, but how do I farm that knowing that there's a for sale sign on it? You start running the numbers, they're asking $11.7 an acre. How do I compete with that? The math doesn't math, okay? So my mom is one of 10 siblings. My grandpa died in '99, and she and her siblings are taking it over. One of them is now 74. He's going, we should probably sell that piece. It's 126 acres. You start doing the math on it. My wife and I looked at it. Okay, putting 10% down with the FSA loan, if we could get that, it'd be 5.9% interest or 5.6, something like that, on $1.2 million. Stretch out the payments to see how low we can get this. 40-acre payment, it'd be $480 an acre for the next 40 years. Okay, how much more up and to the right is that going to go? Am I going to figure on, because the total payment was be $2.4 million. It has to double, and I have to earn a profit on that ground. How does this work? So BlackRock, maybe?
I have a comment.
Sure.
I think in your title, you talked about the opportunities, and I
think that's one thing that we, as younger farmers, perhaps don't look at seriously enough, right? We are due for some kind of corrective, right? And if you're at all even halfway lucky to be in a position, great correctives lead to huge opportunities, right? And so while the demographics go this way, and the land costs go this way, and the carryout go this way, which leads to prices going this way, right? That all points to a corrective of a great magnitude, right? Which leads to unbelievable opportunities if you're in the right place.
So part of the reason I didn't answer the question is I love this, okay? This gets us a chance to, okay? 5 heirs got the property. They can't get along. What do? Sell it, okay? Guess who bought it? Now, I actually lucked out because both of the landowners that bought it are fantastic. But guess how old they are? They're both 65. 2 different landowners. Both of them had never bought farms. Oh, I just wanted to buy a farm. So I was able to actually, I did more to sell that property than the freaking realtor did because I was growing, at the time, I was growing sunflowers with my soybeans, so it looked beautiful when the landowners were out there, and we had grazing and green covers on the rest of it. So they're both landowners are just like, oh my God, so there's an opportunity, and they're fantastic. Both of them have been really, I lucked into it. I still get to keep the land. I don't have to pay $480 an acre. It works great, but they're 65. So how long am I going to have that before the next generation? So now you look around the neighborhood, everybody's old. Okay, I got to highlight one more thing. One thing that came through to me this year when we had a bad storm come through, everybody in our neighborhood is old. So old lady around the corner is 80. Neighbors down the road are in their 80s. Another one's down there 75, 65. I'm the only young guy in our neighborhood. I was getting all the calls. Hey, the trees are down. Can you come help? Okay. The kids are all 30, 40, 100 miles away. Who's taking care of these people when stuff goes bad? Realize that. Get ready for it. We were speaking at one conference, and one of the guys said he's on the rural fire department, and they're having a hard time getting that. So that's an issue that needs to be factored in. Who's going to take care of us here as a community? If Granny, who's 80, can't even get out of the house, and something bad happens.
Adam, one of the things you showed the wealth that exists
Yep.
in the boomer generation and stuff. How much of that is just going to get completely ate up with that sort of thing?
So, and here, does anybody,
The transfer is coming down, it's going.
and if you're government, have we ever seen a wealth transfer happen that government didn't want to take a cut of? So inheritance tax, that could make a comeback. That's why I say, get going on your succession plans.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You made the comment a little bit ago about your goal is to have a conservation-minded farm be so incentive, so lucrative that people can't pass it up. What I find interesting is it seems to me when you read broadly, I mean, it is accepted that conservation type, environmentally conscious type commercial corn and soybean production is more advantageous economically. Why is it, in your opinion, why is that incentive seized upon by the
Okay, the boomers, remember I said? Society, because they have been the largest generation relative to all others. They got their way on everything, okay? I hate to say it, it's just the way it worked. They literally were the biggest generation for years, so they could dictate to everybody else. So what happened? They dictated themselves a lot of benefits. That's where ethanol came from. That's where the crop insurance something, because they were the mass beneficiaries of that. And it's an uncomfortable conversation, but this is where we're at. So what happens? Okay, corn and soybeans, we've been all pigeonholed, because what happens? Milk cows go, we're just going to row crop. No point in history has a 2-crop rotation been the basis of any civilization, okay? Except for ones that fell in, okay? So we're in a weird spot here. What's the next 100 years look like? What's the next 50 years? And I don't have the answer to that, but it's fun to dream. What do we want? Do we want something like Ray where we could get more interaction between consumers? I can see it. I'm seeing it when we're at, in church or small group or whatever, and they're asking because their little kid can't eat eggs from the grocery store, but they can eat our eggs. I don't know why, but he'll eat them. He can keep them down. Explain it to me. So they're aware of that there's changes that need to be made. They don't know what they are. We're all in this uncomfortable position where we have no idea what the future is going to be. But now's the time to figure out what we want it to be, and let's aim towards that target. You guys got a lot to think about, didn't you?
Do you see things possibly going back smaller? Just because now Tyson is just closing a major meat packing plant again. How in the world is that good for us, other than get this back to a bunch more localized production?
So that's a great point. I see the dairy being kind of at the front end of that. Because what did everybody do? They got out of dairy and they went into the cover crop. So what did we have? I think when we got started in 16, there was like 7,000, 8,000 dairies in Wisconsin. Now we're down to 4, 3, not very many. In 8 years, we lost that many. So I'm friends with a handful that are big dairies, like 18. I know my uncle's got 600 cows, and you talk to them guys and they're no better off than we are. My nutritionist works on 6,000 cow dairies in Indiana, 8,000, 9,000 cow dairies up north, north in Wisconsin. And he said, with the cost of capital now rising, the whole dairy model was you never want to get to 50% equity. Because interest was so cheap, as soon as you got to 50% equity, you borrow against it and you build another dairy. Well, money's no longer cheap. What built the dairies? Cheap land, cheap labor, immigrant labor usually, cheap capital, and cheap feed. None of those are cheap now, except for maybe the feed, which is coming back after several years. So where we're at in the dairy model, and we ship to Prairie Farms, so we can call and talk to the directors and actually the CEO. And one of the things they're looking out 5 and 10 years is where's our milk supply going to come from? Because everybody implemented a quota about 5 years ago, and now they're starting to go, you guys get a 3% increase. And you get a 3% increase. And Prairie Farms' whole model is they don't want to get over 75% total utilization. They'd rather buy on the open market. They're not having trouble buying milk, but that number is much easier to stay under than they used to be. So looking ahead, I can see the dairy model going 120 cows, 2 robots, and 1 family unit.
Along with that, you're in Wisconsin. I'm southeast Minnesota.
Yep.
We're looking at water. I see northeast Wisconsin has huge issues with that.
Yep.
From huge CAFOs
Yep.
and the manure being too consolidated.
Yep. I grew up on a southern Wisconsin. I think there's something in the water there, and they're big dairies. Everybody went big dairies, and it was all boomer age guys building dairies. They're all friends. We'll build another 500 cow. The first 500 cow dairy in our county was right there. That's now an 1,800 cow dairy. They built this monstrosity. The second generation, they couldn't buy it. They couldn't afford it. And it's 2 miles from Lake Geneva. That's a dumb place to site a dairy. But they did. So now they built these mammoth operations. What do you do with it? The bones are bad. It's 30 years old. Nobody wants it, because if you can afford a 1,800 cow dairy, you're probably going to go somewhere more advantageous and build it yourself. What's the model here? My uncle's milking 600 cows. He built it, him and a buddy built it in 97. Okay. He's got all these 300-foot barns, and there's 60. His big bitch is he wished it made it a free span because the posts are 6 inches wide, and there's 60 posts in this thing. And if I got rid of them, I'd have 30 more feet of feed rail. Rick, your kids aren't here, and that's what you're worried about? That's where we're at. And how sustainable is that dairy? Because he built that with the land base. He doesn't own that much land. He built the network with all the landowners. So we start seeing these lands get sold. Who's going to hold these big operations together when the land is so valuable you can't afford to farm it? Unless there's a big realignment. I don't know. I'm just seeing lots of problems here. So there's going to be huge opportunity, but we don't know what that looks like. Go ahead.
Okay, well, so I live in St. Paul. One advantage is we have 2 co-ops. I can get 100% grass-fed milk,
Yep.
butter, meat. It is significantly more expensive, right? My half gallon of my milk is about $6 compared to you get the generic at Cub, it's probably $2.
Yep.
How do those get closer together? Like you said,
What's the healthcare cost?
right. That's why I'm willing to pay it.
So
Like Ray said,
in my mind, food and health, like Ray said, they're on opposite sides there. It's going to cost you. Do you want to pay less for food and more for healthcare, or do you want to pay a little less for healthcare and more for food?
Question on that, what's the cost of the regulation? I just sit here as a guy who does my own backyard chickens and stuff like that, and I got people in my ear, talking to how they visit and whatever.
Yep.
So the cost of if I was to start marketing backyard chickens and try to go to a co-op, that's gonna significantly drive that cost higher.
Yep.
You have the government regulations that's blocking me.
Yep.
Compared to when my dad was in school. My dad was young. They went to church on Wednesday night, dropped off the cream, dropped off the
there's, 10 million words in the IRS regulations. Can we cut some of those, please? I got a good story. I have a friend, he and his wife used to milk 40 cows on her dairy. She sold candles. She's a very people person, likes to deal with people. They shut down their dairy. They're spending over $300,000 to start up a bottling plant to milk 12 cows. And most of that is regulations required to be permitted, okay? One of the stories he tells me is that there's a valve which is only made in Switzerland. In Wisconsin, that valve is the only one permitted for the bottom of their pasteurizer. Why on God's green earth is that where we're at? That $5,000 valve is the only one permitted. You're telling me we can't come up with something better here? That's the type of regulation that just needs to go away. He said the fancy floor coating was going to be $13,000, and it's just epoxy. And he thought he was going to be into all of this. He bought all used equipment on the cheap for $200,000, and it's now $100,000 over budget. You want to talk about a problem? There's a problem. Yep. So, again, I don't have answers, but I got a lot of questions.
Same thing, used equipment, started that, had a budget in mind, and that doubled, and it didn't quite get them over.
So one of my things with the young people is, at some point, playing the game by the rules that are existing is no longer the most viable option. And that's when the young revolt. And we get to that stage in society throughout history. Generally, it's whenever the average age of marriage is over 28. We're at 29 right now. When the young don't have a reason to support society, they change it. We're kind of there. That's why I say there's a lot. The future looks bright. It's just going to look a lot different. So, you guys are super quiet. Doesn't it blow your minds? Thank you guys for coming. Yeah?
Can you speak to the difference in mentality between boomers and millennials in reference to transition?
So, this book, if you want to read, it's called The Fourth Turning is Here. Everybody should read that book. And it talks about in there, every generation approaches history at a different stage, okay? So, if you're a Vietnam vet, that was a different time. You were a high-trust society. You went to war. You came back, shocked the system. Now you're into things, okay? You're getting into life. You're buying houses. You're starting having kids, all of that. So 9/11 happened. I was just out of high school. Totally different than somebody who has already made their money and was, say, in retirement. History changes generations, and generations affect history. Go ahead.
So corporate concentration.
Yep.
And the monopolization of the food industry and the processing industry has crippled our ability to get ahead.
Yep.
Because they control it.
Yep.
Basically, and you have a hard time getting into their game because
Yep.
they basically play it. No whether it's in the dairy processing, they're down to two or three big processors.
Yep.
That control all that value.
Who plays gatekeeper in that? Regulation.
Nobody now.
No, regulation. Regulation is the base player. So we get those type of distortions because whoever can play that game the best wins. So that's how we have the monopolization until the system tips over and we say, we're going to shuffle the deck here. So that's why I say, I think we got a new era coming of something different because of that. Because a 28-year-old's playing on his phone saying, what's in it?
So the question to make is, why would they give up? You got it all. Why would you just give it up?
Exactly.
Why
And
would you move out of your comfort zone? They've been doing the same pattern.
exactly. So what?
The same model over agriculture for the last 50 years.
Exactly. So then here's what happens.
They drive the price up, what we receive up, and then all of a sudden they drive all the inputs up, and then when the inputs go up to high, then they lower the price because they can.
Right.
Nobody stops them, and the inputs eat you up again.
So here's what happens.
So what they do is they take all your money that you gained in the up years,
Yep.
you put it in your pocket, pay down your debt, you drive the price down, you suck all that money back out of your pocket, put it back in the operating so you can still be out there. So you run through that cycle of being.
That's the old model that the young people aren't buying into because we can't afford it.
That's there today.
So when the young don't play that game, I'm not playing that game. When the young don't play that game, why am I doing cover crops? Because I don't have to buy so much fertilizer. That's how we opt out. And at some point, the system becomes, it's easier to opt out than to play the game. And that's when it changes. And we're right on the edge of that. So And as we've gotten bigger and more of that, what happened? COVID taught us that. It becomes more brittle. Suddenly there's no milk on the shelves, okay? And that's what I think shocked the system a little bit, especially on the younger people who maybe are a little tighter on cash or whatnot. They said, we gotta change the system here a little bit. The future looks bright.